Hello my friends, Paul here in the RoJoBe Music Workshop, and welcome to part 7 of the cigar box guitar build project. Since the last video I have inserted the frets into the fretboard, and so in today's video I'm going to be doing a level crown and polish on the frets. A couple of other little things. As I said, I've put all the frets in and I've just nipped off the ends and made it nice and flush down both sides. It's not really a lot to see, it's just tap, 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 snip, 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 really. And also I noticed I had a little hole in the top of the headstock, which actually went right the way through. So I've just filled that in with a small piece of dowel, which is, as you can see, it's not the same colour, but that's not a problem. I can just use a little bit of wood stain. It's not going to match exactly, but it will darken it a bit and it will look a bit better. But I'll do that later. So for this job, for doing the fret job, there's a few tools I will need. My fret leveling file and fret leveling beam, which is 4 different grits of sandpaper. I will need my fret crowning file and a fret end dressing file. Also need Sharpie. This is a multi-tool which can also be used as a fret rocker, and my 2 fretboard guards and some wet and dry sandpaper. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do before I start is just check the level of the frets as they are at the moment. So let me just zoom you in a bit. And here. So what I do with this fret rocker, I'm actually going to start at the other end. So basically what you do is you lay it across three of the frets, and you see if it rocks backwards and forwards. So there's just the slightest amount there. So you place it across 3 frets. So you're checking to see if you've got any high frets. So if it rocks backwards and forwards, then the fret in the middle of those 3 is going to be slightly high. Okay, so I need to lay it down to do it properly. So I'll start at the top end. And there is just a slight amount of rocking there. Move on to the next 3. Very minimal. Yeah, there's a little bit here and there. Nothing on that one. Just turn that around so I'll just up to there. Okay. Yeah. Very minimal, to be honest. Hardly anything. Very little. There is a little bit here and there, which is to be expected. Tiny little bit down this bottom end. Okay, I mean, to be honest, it is very minimal, and you know, whenever you put frets into a fretboard, it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter how level everything is, when you put the frets in, you are always going to have a little bit of unevenness, and you're always going to have to do a fret job. I mean, for how little unevenness there is on this fretboard, I mean, I've seen worse from factory guitars straight out of the box. And I don't mean just the cheap ones, I mean, you know, the high-end ones as well. It's almost, I would say, completely impossible to make a fretboard, put all your frets in without having a few minor issues. So if I look down the neck, I can just see there is the tiniest amount of backbone, which isn't what you normally want. But once I've done the fret job on here, it's going to be perfectly level. And then when I've got the strings on and up to tension, if anything, it will pull the very, very slightest underbow in the neck, which is what you do want. So this is actually a good starting point, to be honest. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Oh, that's in. Okay, and I'll try and angle the camera down a little bit more. Okay, so the first thing to do before actually doing the levelling is mark all the top of the frets with a Sharpie so that you can see what you're filing and what's not being touched. So I'll start by putting a Sharpie line all the way across all of the frets, and this really doesn't need a big fret job. It's very light. Very, very light. As I said, I've seen worse on factory guitars straight out of the box. So this is, you know, pretty good, to be honest. And it really doesn't need very much at all. It's not going to take long. Okay, one more to go. Okay. So, I don't know how well you can see that, but there's Sharpie across all of the frets. Okay, so because I've got this heel block on here, that's allowing me to put that over the end of the bench as a stop, which is really useful. It takes away the need to put this neck in a vise, which I don't really want to do, or you know, the workbench. Okay, so starting with the fret leveling file, I'm just going to lightly go over the whole fretboard, up and down and side to side as well, making sure I get it as even as possible. Now, as I said, this is not going to take very much at all, so I need to be careful not to take too much off. Okay, so here we go. So what I can do, because of this stop on the end, I've got hold of the headstock and I'm basically pulling it that way to hold it nice and steady. Okay, here we go. Right, I'm just going to stop there. It's not finished, but just to give you an idea of what needs to be taken off and what doesn't. So you see that end, there's still quite a bit of Sharpie lines on most of the frets, but as we come up, it's not showing very well, most of the frets already are filed. So just by doing that small amount, I'm more or less halfway done. So, as I said, it's not going to take very much at all. Now, interestingly, two of these frets have still got the mark in the middle, which suggests that the ends are a little bit higher up. Stop there and recheck with the fret rocker. Okay, so far nothing at all. Okay, so I'm halfway up the fretboard and I'm finding no rocking whatsoever anymore. Which, unless I actually find any now, I'm done. So certainly on this part at least. It's actually gone even quicker than I was expecting. So, as you saw, that took practically nothing at all, really. And it's done. So there are still a few black marks on some of the frets, but I'm not going to go any more than that because it's not necessary. As you saw, I went over the whole thing with the fret rocker and there is no rocking anywhere. So that part is done. So the next thing is to use my fret recrowning file, because obviously where I've done the filing across there, the tops of the frets are now flattened off. So I need to put a crown back on the top of the frets. So I'll just choose the right gauge, because this file has 3 different gauges with 3 different gauge of frets. So I need to use number 1, which is the smallest, because these are quite small frets, and I literally just go across the top of the frets just to put a crown back on them. Okay, so this again won't take very long. Okay, so that again, that's all it took with that. It's very little to do on there because I didn't take much off them. I'm just going to recheck again with the fret rocker, just to make sure we didn't go too low on any of them. Looking good so far. So again, halfway up the fretboard, no problems so far. Okay, 2 more. And that's it, it's done. So what I need to do now is with the fret end dressing file is just round off the ends of each fret. They don't need much again, so this is not going to take long. Just to take off the any sharp edges. I mean, the actual ends of the frets themselves is not so crucial in this case because I'm going to be putting fretboard binding back on these. It's just literally the corners of them at the end. When you file a bevel on the end, you basically get little corners, and that's all I'm doing is just taking those off. This has got to be one of the easiest fret jobs I've ever done. It's certainly the quickest, which is nice. So I don't particularly enjoy doing the fret job. It's it's always got to be done, and I crack on and do it, but it's not a fun job. Many other things I would prefer to be doing than doing a fret level. But like I said, you always need to do them. Even if you buy a brand new guitar, straight out of the box, 99 times out of 100 it's going to need a fret job. Albeit very light, it's almost certainly going to need one. It really depends on what guitar you buy and where it's come from. I mean, some factories will do the fret job on every single guitar they put out, but if you think about the high-end guitars where they're putting out probably thousands a day, you can see how much time this would take. So they don't always do them. That's not too bad at all. So I'll turn it around to do the other side. And this one is the more important side because I'm making this right-handed. So this will be the side where people's hands playing it will feel any rough edges. So this side has to be the most concentrated on. Well, both sides really, but this is where, if there are any problems, the player will feel it. Some guitars, and other instruments for that matter, will have steel frets. And most of them, like these ones, are nickel. But some of them do have steel frets. There's also brass and a few other materials as well. But the steel frets take a lot longer to file, because obviously it's a much harder material. The good thing about steel frets is they will last pretty much the lifetime of the guitar, unless you're a really hard player. But generally they will last a lot longer than the nickel frets. But as I said, they're a lot harder to work on because they take so much longer to file. Okay, we're almost done. Just 4 more to do. I mean, a few of them might need going over again, but where I'm at the moment, they're 95% done. Just want to move on to a couple of other jobs, but knowing that this is, as I said, 95% done, I can come back and go over them again before I put the binding on. But this is just basically to show you what I'm doing for a fret job, and that's it. How long was that? About under 15 minutes, and the whole thing is done. Yeah, as I said, a few of them will need a little bit extra for a few minutes, but it is for the most part done. Okay. So, the next 2 jobs in no particular order are to refit the binding on the sides of the fretboard, and also, I've lost it now, I had started to make the nut. Well, I say that, all I've done was just cut it to the approximate length. Ah, here it is. So I've cut out a piece of bone for the nut. At the moment it's the right width as far as this way goes. It's slightly too long, i.e. Oh dear. Right, it's slightly too long that way, so I've got to cut it down a little bit, and it's still a little bit too high as well. But I cut it to the approximate length, just put it up against the end of the fretboard, marked it with a pencil and just cut it with a saw. But I've got to do some final shaping to that. So you can see that there's a pencil line there, which is where the end of the nut should be. So I've got to, cut it to there, and cut a bevel 45-degree angle this way, so that the strings, so this will be the headstock side, the strings will come over here and then drop down, no, sorry, this is the neck side, and then it will come over here and then drop down to the headstock. So I'm going to do that just on my my bench sander. So again, it's not all that exciting to see. I'm just going to be sanding the end of it down so that it's the right length, and then sanding a 45-degree angle on the top, just to make a start on it. I won't do the final shaping until it's actually, I'm going to cut that first, and then I'll offer it up to the fretboard, make a few adjustments as necessary, but the actual final shaping will be done when it's attached to the neck, because it obviously needs to fit the profile of the neck itself, and going on towards the headstock. So I'm going to do that a little bit off camera. It's not really very exciting to watch me sanding a little piece of bone, and I may or may not continue this today, and with another video to show the next stage, which probably will be, I will fit the nut but not do the final shaping yet, and then I'll probably fit the binding, because once I've got both of these in place, then I will start to shape the neck. There's no point doing it until I've got the nut and the binding on, because they will basically govern where the shape of the neck is going to be. Okay, so I'm sorry these videos are just basically bits and pieces nailed together, but that's the process of making things like this. It does take a long time. There's so many little processes. It's surprising how quickly the time goes. That's already 23 minutes I've been waffling on. So I'm hoping to try not to let you miss too much of the builds, and I have got a third one coming up as well, but this one's still quite a long way off of completion yet. I've got to put the binding on, put the nuts on, shape the neck. I've also got to drill the holes for the tuners and fit those, and the string trees, and yada yada yada, and fit and shape the neck to the body. So there's still quite a lot to do, and I'm gonna get on with these as much as possible now. I want to try and finish this, if I can, by next week, because I want to make a start on the other one. Okay, so if you're enjoying these videos, please give a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell, let your friends, colleagues and relatives know about my wonderful channel, and there will be many more videos coming soon. So please look after yourselves, look after each other, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.